giving you a assignment like embellishing idiomatic expressions in your presentation. I also said you should infuse and spice and pepper quotations relevant to the point you're about to share in your presentation and all of that. So today we'll go ahead to look at, continue what we discussed yesterday. For those of you who missed class, there's a video link. You need to just go to YouTube and watch the video. I'd encourage you to watch with your notes and your pen. Take down notes, write down as much things as you can write, and then most importantly, try as much as you can to apply them. So we're going to go into today's subject matter, continue where we stopped yesterday. And I'm aware that a lot of us here hear me use the word transition. What do we really mean by the word transition when we speak in public? And what's that all about? How do we organize our presentation? So a few things we want to reiterate. One, if you're going to speak in public, whether it's an impromptu speech or a speech you're preparing for, divide your speech into three components. And we say divide into an opening or open, the body, and the close, or what you traditionally say, your introduction, your body, and your conclusion. For those of us who have been with the course, we know that the word introduction is a speech writing term and conclusion is speech writing. But we very often we use the word open, body, and close as a public speaking term. And if you want to go a little technical, we'll say primacy, body, and close. All right, so this is important to remember. You break it to OBC. So yesterday, we started looking at a few ideas about how best to open your presentation. I've often told you that your opening is supposed to wow the audience. You're supposed to hook the audience. You're supposed to get them to want to listen to more. And then your body is supposed to woo the audience, woo them into your subject matter. And your close is supposed to win the audience, win them, get them to take action. So that's how you drive your message. So let's get right into our subject today and see a few things that we discussed yesterday. We also discussed how not to start a speech. We gave you ideas on what to do, how that is important that you don't apologize when you're starting a speech, no matter the situation, unless there's a very genuine reason for you to apologize. You don't want to start on that footing. You don't want to give the audience the impression that you are not in charge. We also said that you should not start with so. So is very weak. Don't say I'm not an expert, but share your opinion. They want to hear your opinion. Then we looked at different kinds of open, quotation open, statistics, the anecdote, common ground open, descriptive open, third person anecdote, show of hands open, the contrast open, and the information gap open, this day in history open, the tall open, rapid fire open, the mystery open, the challenge open. We give some examples. The skeptical audience open, the rhetorical question open, the activity open. And that's where I think we stopped. But and I want you to realize that these opens you can combine one or two, you can combine them to get the kind of results that you're looking for. We said yesterday that you can make your open, you say your introduction or how you start pre-open and then post-open. Pre-open, open, and post-open. If you followed, you remember, your pre-open usually is your salutation, your open is your hook, and then your post-open is basically a rundown of what the scope or what the event is going to get to share, how you're going to share, what you're going to share with them. That's a summary of the point you're going to share. So you have the pre-open, you have the open, and then you have the post-open. All right, so let's get into something very important. We'll just dwell on it briefly. And that thing that is very important is what I call the organizational pattern of public speaking, patterns of public speaking. So because we have various kinds of speakings, the way you organize your speaking will most likely be different. I often recommend that when you're doing a presentation, write down. Don't say you just rehearse the ideas or practice without you writing down. Write down your thoughts, write down your ideas, and that's why we'll also be teaching speech writing as a course. Even though small things we'll be sharing in delivery will be related when you're writing, when you're doing your writing, but it's important that we emphasize it. You need to write down your thoughts. So what are the five patterns that you should be particular about when it comes to public speaking? I'll go right into it. The first one is usually there's something called the logical pattern of speaking, where your goal is to be logical and to focus more on the topic, to emphasize the topic as you go along throughout your opening, your body, and your close. If you're giving a speech or presentation that contains several ideas that are interrelated in such a way that one flows naturally to the next, the logical pattern organization can be used. All right, just be logical. This organizational pattern can also be used in a speech that discusses several subtopics under the banner of a primary topic. Just attack them in a logical sequence. So be logical, follow the sequence orderly in a logical manner, in a topical manner, where topic by topic, point by point, subtopic by subtopic is addressed as you go along. It's a pattern in speaking. And without you probably are already using it when you give your speech. You follow through a logical pattern. All right. So the other one is called the chronological pattern or the time sequence pattern. What do we mean by the chronological pattern? That's when you're very conscious of timing. I mean, by patterns, like if you're telling a story, you're very particular about the way you transition with your the dates, the times, and sometimes you do a bit of flashback and you make them aware that you're doing a flashback. All right. So the speech on the development of new technology should begin with its origin, and then continue along the same timeline as events occurred. This organizational pattern is typically used in any speech addressing a subject from a historical perspective. So when you're addressing a subject from a historical perspective, and by the way, that's a very fantastic way to present. You're talking about, you're pitching your business and you're telling them about your origin story. You are giving a speech in many venue, and then you're going through memory lane, or you're doing the chronological pattern, dates, times, events, a bit of flashback. That pattern in speaking is called the chronological or time sequence pattern. Then we have what's called the spatial or geographical pattern. Now, if you want to be descriptive in your entire presentation, if you wish to evoke an image of something that has various parts, and those parts are distinguished by geography, then organize your speech using a spatial pattern. Spatial patterns are suited for speeches about a country or city, or even building or an organization, provided the organization occupies a specific geographical location, such as a hospital or university. I wrote an article on Facebook a few weeks ago about I'm still an Ikorodu boy. And I talked about a few things, a few beautiful places, the tall, towering Methodist church that had this clock and that chimes every now and then, every hour. I talked about the police park that had a field that allowed young people to play football and a few competitions. I talked about the Oro Festival, where women are not allowed to come out, and the men who came out whipped themselves with unique kinds of whip that made some wheezing noise. I talked about the different locations, and about the people that I met, churches that I visited. So I was very descriptive in my approach, talking about the garage, Sabo, and this place, Ikorodu, is in Lagos. I was actually born in Ikorodu. So in sharing that story and giving the presentation, the idea was to get people to have a preview or an idea of how my life, what has made me who I am today, the experiences, the places, the people that have made me who I'm coming from. I'm organizing my speech or my speech writing in a spatial or geographical pattern. So you can use that as a pattern in your presentation. It will help you to be a lot more effective. All right, so we also have the causal or cause and effect pattern. You don't have to use all of these patterns. It depends on the kind of speech you are delivering and the kind of impact you want to make. If you want to put people in an emotional state, then you want to use the chronological, where you go from history, go back history, and then bring them to the present, and then take them to the future. If you want to be topical and logical, then use a logical pattern. If you want to be very descriptive, very descriptive about your campus days, or very descriptive about, how things were when you were much younger, places you used to visit, that style is called the spatial style. Then we have the causal, the cause and effect. Another way to organize a speech on a particular topic is to look at the subject in terms of cause and effect. Look at the subject in terms of cause and effect, or problem solution pattern. Let's have the problem solution pattern. The problem solution organizational pattern is similar to the cause and effect pattern, but it typically is used when the speaker is trying to persuade the audience to take a particular viewpoint. So in this style, what you do is you talk about the problem and then you provide the solution. You talk about the problem and you provide the solution. The providing the solution, you want the audience to, toe your line of thinking as regards that. So it's a style. And I just want to make you aware of it. All right. In essence, the speaker introduces the problem and outlines the problems that can be and how the problems can be solved. All right. So now let's get into, so that's basically about organization. I hope you got some ideas there. Problem solution pattern is what we emphasized. Cause and effect, pattern. Spatial, when you're describing or talking about a location pattern. Chronological pattern. All right. And then we talked about the topical or logical pattern. So let's get into something that I feel that we need to understand when it comes to public speaking, and that's transition. So let me just give you my own, so you don't get it confused. Transition is how you move from one point to another, or one subject to another, or one topic to another topic. Okay? The words that you say, you can use words or phrases in moving from one point to another. If you don't, okay, let me look at this. Let me follow the slide. Transitions are words, okay? So they are words or sentences that help your audience understand the flow of your speech or presentation. Take note of that. Transition are words or sentences that help your audience understand the flow of your speech or presentation. They help your audience understand the flow of your speech presentation. That's what transitions are. Let's see that definition. A transition is a signpost that tells the audience where you are going. Okay, so and I explained that. So it's a word and a sentence. It's a word or a sentence. So sometimes we need to put in words or put in sentences so that people can understand, okay, this is the next point he's saying, this where he's going. Transitions help you to be organized in your presentation. Transition helps in logical pattern of organization, helps in even your chronological pattern of organization, helps in spatial, just making, okay, I've left this point, I'm moving to the next point. That's what transition does. Transition can be a single word or a phrase, okay? Or even a sentence or two. It connects one idea to another and helps the audience to follow along. So what are the words and phrases that you got to use as a speaker when you transition? That's what we're going to be looking at shortly. All right. A transition is a phrase or sentence. Again, you're saying it's a word, a set of words, it's a phrase, it's a sentence. All right. The idea is to help connect the dots, link your opening to your body to your close, connect your body together, make sure the audience get to know when you're moving to another point or another point. A transition is a phrase or sentence that indicates that a speaker is moving from one main point to another main point in a speech. All right, so it's about movement. A transition is a sentence where the speaker summarizes what was said in one point and previews what is going to be discussed in the next point. Okay, so sometimes you summarize what you said, and then I'm going to show you a typical example. Remember the prep formula? We'll discuss it again. So many of us don't fully understand how the prep formula can be a transition tool in public speaking. We'll discuss that shortly. But a transition is a word, a transition, usually word, a sentence, a phrase that helps move, join points, helps people, the audience realize you're moving from one point to another. That's what transition really is all about. So let's look at types of transitions. And like I said, it's a word or phrase. So I'm going to look at many additions. When you want to add in your present. When you want to add something, you can use the word also. So when you use also, it means you're transitioning. You're trying to transition. Again, as well as, besides, coupled with, following this, furthermore, in addition, in the same manner, additionally, likewise, moreover, similarly. These are words you need to incorporate in your presentation, and it just indicates to the audience that you are moving or you are adding to what you already discussed. So when you are adding, so we have addition transitions where you want to add to a thought that you already presented, then you use this expression, this transition statements or transition phrases or words. Let's look at it. We have another kind of transition called direction. You want to give them a direction in your presentation. If you're doing spatial or pattern of speeches, you can say here, here, you can say there, over there, beyond, nearly, opposite, under, above, to the left, to the right, in the distance. So this can be transitional statements or transitional words or phrases that you use to give people a direction, whether it is literal or figurative, whether you're saying it in, whether it's spatial, whether you're geographically spatial and you're saying something, describing something, and then, or you're trying to point them to the board, you can use these words or phrases to indicate to the audience that you're transitioning, that you're moving, you're either adding or you're giving direction. There are another type of transitions are called consequences. So sometimes you want to emphasize, you want to say, you want to highlight the consequence or in your presentation. What you can incorporate in your presentations are accordingly, as a result, consequently, for this reason, for this purpose, hence, otherwise, so then, subsequently, therefore, thus, thereupon, whereof. These are words you can use if you're trying to highlight the consequence of any matter in your presentation. Again, transitions are words, they are phrases, they are sentences, and they're used to indicate to the audience that you're moving from one point to another. Sometimes beyond that, you're trying to give them, highlight a consequence, or trying to give them a direction, or you are trying to add to whatever it is that you are saying. Make sense to you? All right, so let's look at another transitional statement of words when you're generalizing things. So as a rule, you can be speaking and use the word as a rule, as usual, for the most part, generally speaking, ordinarily, usually. So I expect that you're writing these words and then you're finding ways to use them regularly. You need to put them in your conversations. You need to use them as you speak because they indicate subconsciously to the audience that you're moving to another point, or that you are adding, or that you're generalizing, or that you're highlighting a consequence. And you see, transitions are quite important. They make for smooth delivery. They make for smooth delivery of your speaking. And so you want to incorporate these words in your presentation so that you can flow better and you can carry the audience along. You don't underrate the power of these words as you inject them in your presentation. All right. So when you are trying to exemplify, you can use the word chiefly, especially. For instance, you're trying to give an example. You say, for instance, you can say in particular, you can say markedly, you can say namely, you want to talk about a few things, particularly, all right? You can use including, specifically, such as. These are words. Of course, you use them maybe unconsciously, but become more conscious of them, realizing now that these words or phrases are transitional statements and they indicate to the audience that you're trying to exemplify or highlight consequence or get them to see direction and so on. All right. So let's look at another transitional statement. Maybe you want to do an illustration. You want to give an illustration in your presentation. What you can use are, of course, obviously, for example, for instance, for one thing, as an illustration, illustrated with, as an example. In this case, these are phrases and words you can use just to indicate that you're trying to do an illustration or you're moving from one point to another. That is important. All right, so you want to emphasize, emphasis, you want to make emphasis, you want to emphasize. What kind of statements or phrases do you want to use? Are you going to use? Above all, chiefly, with attention to, especially, particularly, singularly, it indicates to the audience you are transitioning. So you obviously use this word conversation, but now be more conscious of them, be more particular about them, because these words help the audience to flow along with you. All right. So we have other ones. We have you want to do something on similarity, what you can use, words you can use. Maybe you're describing something similar, comparatively, coupled with, correspondingly, identically, likewise, similar, moreover, together with. These are phrases and words you can use when you're discussing similarity, and it indicates to the audience you're transitioning. All right, let's see if we have another one. We have exceptions. Okay, if you're trying to, exceptional words you can use are aside from, barring, besides, excepts, accepting, exclude, exclusive of, other than, outside of, save, and saying, um, you can use the word and use save, or barring any consequences, barring any issues. Those are words that indicate, or statements that indicate that you're about to transition. All right. So want to do a restatement. Maybe you are concluding your thoughts. What you can use, maybe you're trying to do, when we do the prep formula, there's something called point of view restated. Maybe you're trying to do a restatement of that point. What you can use, in essence, in other words, namely, that is to say, in short, in brief, to put it differently. All right, you want to rephrase or you want to restate a statement. These are words or phrases you can use. I'm going to make sure the video is available, so it's recorded. Make sure the video is available so that you can watch it and become familiar with these words. Use them in your presentation. They just add a lot of beauty. Imagine you using these transitional statements, words, and phrases coupled with your idiomatic expressions and your quotes, all put in your presentation. What an amazing and interesting speaker you'll be. With those, fancy words you use also, those new words you've learned over the period of time, you've gathered, and you incorporated maybe the borrowed words, the cliches, the vis-a-vis, the tete-a-tete, the, status quo, and all those words that you add into your presentation. They make your speech a delight to listen to. All right. So restatement, you can use transitional statements like this. Contrast and comparisons. Contrast, you can use contrast. By the same token, conversely, instead, likewise, on one hand, on the other hand, on the contrary, nevertheless, rather, similarly, yet, but, however, I use that a lot. I use however a lot. Still, I use still very often. Nevertheless, I use that sometimes often. In contrast, so these are words you can use on a regular basis, especially when you're doing contrast and comparisons in your presentation. All right, sequence, you're trying to do a sequence in your presentation. At first of all, maybe you're doing point to point. At first of all, to begin with, imagine you starting your presentation, starting your first point by saying, maybe after your opening, and then you want to go into the first point, to begin with, or at first, or in the first place, at the same time, for now, for the time being, the next step, in time, in turn, later on, meanwhile, next, then, soon, the meantime, later, while, earlier, simultaneously, afterward, in conclusion, with this in mind. With this in mind. So you see, these are words or phrases you use to indicate to the audience that you are either doing a sequence, doing a comparison or contrast, doing a transition as regards highlighting the consequence, and on and on. So these are different types of transitions. Okay, comparison of similar ideas. Likewise, what do you mean? Repeat it. We're just trying to repeat for emphasis. Likewise, similarly, in the same manner, in the same way, we can also see this. All right, contrasting ideas. However, You're speaking something and you say, however, you use the word but, on the other hand, on the contrary, nevertheless, notwithstanding the foregoing. Okay, these are words you can use on a regular basis. Expanding on a point. Furthermore, in addition, on top of that, also, I'm going to expand a point. Okay, for emphasis, when you reach a key moment in your presentation, it's essential that the audience understand how important it is. And the most important reason is, most importantly, I use the word very often, most importantly, even if we put aside all of other reasons, above all else, this is for emphasis. All right. Now, discussing consequences. When you're knowing the consequences, therefore, we already discussed this earlier, therefore, as a result, as a consequence, for these reasons. So, to conclude, in conclusion or in closing, if you're writing, say in conclusion, if you're speaking, you say in closing, in summary, to sum up. I like this part, and I use it very often when I'm closing my presentation. I'll say, I like to leave you with, I like to leave you with. That's a transitional statement from my body to the close. That's a transitional statement with from my body to a close. Final remarks. I like to leave you with. That's a good way to end your presentation. So let's look at something very important. Transitions in a speech or presentation are like, now pay attention to this, is so very important. All right, so very important. Pay attention to, in fact, I like you to write it down. So it helps you to understand the imperative, the pertinence, the why transitions are so tantamount, why they are so relevant, why they must be used. All right, so transitions in a speech or presentation are like the stitching in a fine suit or dress. They're like stitching in a fine suit or dress. They take up a relatively small part of the whole, and when they work well, you don't really notice them. But when they are loose and of poor quality, they stick out. So these words I'm relating, these words and phrases I'm relating, I use them most of the time, maybe not consciously, just use them. But okay, because you're not conscious of them, because you're not intentional about them, because you're not deliberate about them, they just are not there in your presentation. And because they're not there in your presentation, they allow your presentation becomes flabby, you know. But when you have them, they may not be noticed, but they make a very strong impression. They put the suit together, they put the presentation, they end up being the structure. They end up being the entire structure of the speech. What joins the opening together, what also joins the body and makes it very sequential and seamless, and what also joins the close. What joins the entire presentation together are your transitional words and transitional statements. Be conscious of them. All right. What enables you to either be spatial in your public speaking organization, or be topical or logical or chronological, however, what style of presentation you're using, transitions will help you to achieve those results. Okay, so this is important. Did you get the notes? Transitions in a speech or presentation are like stitching in a fine suit or dress. They take up a relatively small part of the whole, and when they work well, you don't really notice them, but when they are loose and of poor quality, they stick out. You just notice that presentation isn't coming out fine, so subsequently, you need to understand that, look, transitions are so important. Now we discussed about the prep formula. We said primacy is not just your opening. Primacy is also starting from your best ideas to your least most important ideas. For those of you who attended class yesterday, so primacy is starting from your best ideas to your least most important ideas. And the recency is starting from your least most important ideas to your best ideas. We said that's one definition of primacy. We also said that primacy is the core of your presentation. But, we have the primacy, then we have the body. And for those of you who follow me, we know that the body, the opening or the introduction can take less than 10% of your entire presentation, including your close. 10%, 10%, 80%, 80 to 85% of your entire presentation will be the body. If you're not careful, you will just digress. So transitional statements and using certain formulas, which is one of it, will enable you to move from your point to another point easily. So we call it a prep formula. I've taught you before, but for emphasis, let me repeat it again so you can understand. The P, when you're doing your first point, all right, you have a point of view. Then if you're going to give a point of view, next thing you're going to do is give reasons for the point of view or of the point of view, and then you give your example or examples, and then you restate the point of view restated. We call it PRAP formula, used by a lot of public speaking experts, and is a fantastic way to do your presentation. All right, so I gave this highlight last time. Let's say you're doing a speech and you have 3 points to share. Let's assume that you've done your opening. Your open was fantastic. You had a pre-open, you had a post-open that hooked the audience, and we had the pre-open, the open, and the post-open. And then the post-open now literally summarizes what you're going to say, like a thesis of what you're going to say. And then you're now moving into your main point. So this is how you're going to flow. Your P1 is a point one. State your first point one. You have to do R1. R1 is the reason of your point one. The E1 is the example of your point one, example or examples of your point one. P1R is a point one restated, the point one restated. And then P2, then you move to your point two. Okay, if you're going to move from point one restated and move to your point two, there has to be a transitional statement. There has to be a transitional phrase or word that enables people either next or also or in continuation, whatever it is you want to use, depending on the style. There has to be a transitional statement that moves you from P1R to P2. That's your point two. Then you give your reason for your point two or of your point two, example or examples of your point two, your point two restated. Then you have to be a transitional statement or a transitional phrase or word or sentence that moves you to your point three, your reason for your point three, your example of your point three restated. Then you now get into your close. Of course, there has to be a transitional phrase or statement that you have thought about that you're going to use to bring P3R and join it to C. C is your close. So this simple sequence is called the prep formula. So if you're doing 3 points, that's what you're going to do. If you're doing 4 points, the same thing. You're doing 5 points. So you don't give a speech without giving a reason or giving an example and restating the point, then using a transitional statement that takes you to your next point. Just try this style and you see that it will help you. So basically, P basically is your claim or the point that you're sharing. R is the reasons, the facts, the stats, the figures, the sources, the quotes. That's what you're going to do. That's what makes up the reason. E are the examples or evidence, the stories, the illustrations, the testimonials. That then P stands for point restated. That's what prep formula is used. So we teach it in Podium Dynamics Academy, and most of the students who use the prep formula turn out to be fantastic speakers. All right. So there's another style and method called that can help you to transition, that can help you to flow, help you to move in your body, the body representation better. We call it the windshield wiper method. If you look at the picture there, you see the windshield. It goes chap, 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 chap. It's raining, and the windshield wiper is doing its work. It's wiping, pop, 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 pop. The windshield wiper method was put together, was created by Brian Tracy. Now, Brian Tracy is the author of the book, many books, but this book, Speak to Win, How to Present with Power in Any Situation, is where he first introduced the concept of the windshield wiper method. So what's the windshield wiper method? You could either be using the prep formula. For a newbie and a new student, I often tell them, use the prep formula to begin your presentation. And then later on, you can graduate, all right, into the windshield wiper method. You can move on to this. So the windshield wiper method, has this assumption or this presupposition that our brain has two hemispheres. So those of you with sciences, you know that our brain is divided into two. It's divided into the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. These two separate parts of brain process different things. These separate parts process different things, the left and the right. So the brain is divided into two, the left and the right. And so we see how the windshield. So the two parts, the left hemisphere analyzes, the left part of your brain analyzes facts, data, process, and reacts to things of all these kinds of things, facts, data, processes, content. It's very logical. That's the left. And most people are are left-brained people. They're predominant. Doesn't mean they don't use their right brain. Just that means that a lot of the times they use their left brain. They're very logical, very critical, very analytical in their thinking. And if they're listening to you, they will take your words and they want to process it analytically, logically. Okay. So the windshield wiper method puts into cognizance that we have people with left who are left processing, and there are also people who are right-sided in their brain processing. Right hemisphere examines, okay, stories, they connect strong with stories, excitement, music, examples, and hobbies. All right. Now, so let's look at it in more detail. So the left and the right brain. So, it goes chap, chap, the windshield chap, chap. So it reaches out to the left, reaches out to the right, reaches out to the left, reaches out to the right, reaches out to the left people who are left brained, who hemisphere thinking, processing people, and then the right people. Okay, so the left brain basically talks about, left brain people are usually sequential, very sequential, logical. If you're doing the logical or topical kind of presentation, they would really admire it. They have details, words, they are logical, they are very particular about numbers and stats, measurements. They want you to do a recall, okay, the restatement, the grammar, they're particular about your grammar, the use of your words, patterns, okay, literal meaning, content, name recall, time awareness, component, science, maths. These are things that we have people who use their left brain. The right brain people are more simultaneous, holistic. They are picture driven. I mean, they really appreciate your slides that are pictorial and your descriptive pictures and stories rather. They are intuitive. They're particular about shapes, motion, imagination, intonation, and emphasis. Get across to them. Accents get across to them. Abstract meaning, context, face recognition, spatial awareness, objects, art, music. So which side of the brain do you use? You need to also do a personal audit on yourself. As an audience, what kind of brain do you use? Are you someone who is very left? Please, if you're just joining, I'd like you to mute your sound. If you're just joining, mute your sound. Thank you. So if you're a left-sided person, maybe you're the one, if I'm giving out content, really out content, you're very excited about that. And you really feel that this course you're taking is something that appeals to you because you're a left-sided person, you're very analytical. Please, if you're just joining us, mute your sound. Somebody just came in and the person's sound is filtering into class. Would appreciate if you can mute your sound. God bless you. If you're right-sided person, what really connects you are the pictures and the stories that I share in this event, or the new fact, the exciting fact that I share. So what kind of person you are? And there's this picture that was put out a few this picture that was put out a few years ago, 2019, that enables us to quickly distinguish between whether you are use your right hemisphere or your left hemisphere, whether you use your left hemisphere brain or your right hemisphere. And whatever colors you see, what's the color of the shoe itself? What's the color of the shoelace? What's the color of the shoe? What's the color of the school lace? What colors are you seeing? I would like you to write down the colors you see on the comment section. If you're following this class, write down the colors you see on the comment section. The colors that you see on the comment section. What's the color of the shoe? Are you saying pink or are you saying ash? What's the color of the lace? Are you saying white or are you saying sea green? Whatever colors you're seeing of the shoe, the body of the shoe, and the lace, write it down. Please just do that as an assignment because the result will help us realize whether you are using very often your left hemisphere or your right hemisphere. All right. So I see somebody's noise, I see somebody's sound filtering into class. I'd like you to mute your sound. I really appreciate it. Just check that your sound is muted. Just check that your sound is muted. You can easily do that. Go to your mute button, your microphone button, and then click on it. It will mute you. Don't allow sound to filter in because we're recording this. God bless you. So now, if you have done that assignment, if you're written down the things I've told you to write about what color you saw of the shoe and of the lace, what that simply means is that this is what it means. If you're a right brain person, it means that you're going to see pink and white. If you saw pink color and white color of that shoe, it means that you are a right brain person. It means that you process things, you're a storyteller, you are very pictorial, you're among the creative person, all right? If you saw sea green and gray, the shoe lace was sea green for you, and then the body was gray, it means that you're a left brain person. All right, so this is very interesting. All right, so what do you see? Write down what you saw, and let's get to know what kind of person you are. So this is what you, most likely gray, and white, and pink and white. People just see different colors. Now, so how does the windshield wiper method work? Somebody's sound is still filtering into the class. Somebody's sound is still filtering into the class. I'd like you to mute your sound. Just be aware. If you're taking this class and you're aware of it, please make sure you mute the sound so that we don't just come and move you. I don't want to come out and move you. Somebody's sound is still filtering to the class. I don't want to get to remove you. Okay, he'll be removed from the class. All right, so are we. So the windshield wiper method, puts into cognizance that, right brain, left brain. So what you do basically is when you're presenting, you share a fact, um, then you give a lesson. A fact will appeal to the right brain, a lesson will appeal to the left brain. Then you share an example. Example appeal to the person who is the right brain hemisphere, and then you give a fact to appeal to the left brain. It may be a start. You share a start. A start will appeal to the logical left brain, and then a story will appeal to the right brain. You share an anecdote, a short story, and then you give a point. So that way, facts, that should be, sorry, not facts, that should be example. Share an example. Example, give a lesson. Please correct that. If you're following, it's not share a fact. The fact will also appeal to the left brain. So example, that is example or story. Okay, a story, give a lesson. Example, give a lesson. Example again, give a fact. Starts, give a story. Anecdote, give a point. Just you moving from touching on the left brain people and the right brain people, and touching on the right brain people to left brain people. That's just the idea of the windshield wiper method. It in your presentation, it's very, very creative. In your presentation, you put into cognizance that people who are in your audience are either left brain or right brain. And so you're sharing ideas and points to reach out to those two people. So your points are in that manner. Fact, story, fact, story, point, anecdote, point, example, starts, and on and on and on and on. That's how it works. So I'm sure you got some value here. Let's wrap this class up so that we can go into something entirely different when we begin to talk about other things in public speaking. All right. So your opening is primacy, which we discussed yesterday, and then we looked at the body, which we talked about transition, and then now we're looking at recency. Recency basically speaks about your close, how you close your presentation. But again, let's see what recency is. According to study.com, recency is the ability of an individual to recall the last or most recent piece of information memorized. What that means is that people's attention span reduces in the body, and that's why you need to, wake them up either with icebreakers or with transitional statements that or questions that get them to snap back into reality. Okay. Their attention is high at the beginning when you're sharing your thoughts. Then it goes down, it ebbs in the body relatively. And then when you start using transitional statements that indicate that you're about to close, attention rises up again. People want to pick your last statement. And that's why your last statement should contain pretty much everything that you have been sharing. And we'll get to that shortly. So that's what recency is: the ability of an individual to recall the last, most recent piece of information memorized. Okay, so we have something called the principle of recency, just like we have something called the principle of primacy. Now, the principle of recency states that people remember best things that are most recently learned. This means that they remember best the last thing that you tell them. The last thing that you tell people in your presentation is what they remember, what they take home. So people may forgive your bad opening, but they will forget in a lousy close. And people do lousy closes. They'll say, oh, that's all. Okay, I'm done. Finished. That's everything. Those kind of statements are not statements you be using as a public speaker. You should have leave a lasting impression, because last words matter. You want to leave a lasting impression. You want to give the recency effect on your audience. Last words you're going to say will give you a standing ovation. That should be your goal as a speaker. So, how not to close a speech? Again, we have a subject matter we teach on different kinds of closes, but I'm not going to just we'll just look at a few things here and different kinds of closes too that I would encourage you to look at. That number one, not announcing that you're wrapping up. When you don't announce to the audience that you're about to wrap up, it's not a good way to close. So you have to announce about this, in conclusion, or let me leave you with this last words. Wow, that's strong. Not offering a summary. Again, because last words are what linger longer in the minds of the audience, just like the comedian should leave the audience laughing, the speaker should leave the audience thinking. So your summary should not rephrase or restate some of the high points you mentioned in the body of your presentation. Not providing a call to action, because you see, the goal of the close is to get the win, is to win them, not just to wow them. The wowing is in the opening, the wooing is in the body, but the winning should be in your close. And so you want to win them to your line of thinking. Leaving your audience with a dude ending, like that's all. Dude ending, like that's all. Okay, I guess that's it. Oh, I'm done. No. And this is one that a lot will do after doing a very long presentation. They say, okay, let me conclude with Q&A, question and answer. Okay, do you have any questions? No. Close appropriately. Close and close well. Finish your presentation. Exit the stage. Exit the podium. Let the MC or the coordinator or the compare of the event invite you afterwards to come take Q&A. Q&A is an entirely different presentation. It's different from your presentation. Do your presentation, conclude your thoughts, go and sit down and then take questions later. Don't stand and continue to ask them for Q&A, all right? Does it make sense to you? Even if you're doing a lecture, try and do that, and it will help you to become perceived as a better speaker. All right. So there will always be 3 speeches for everyone you actually gave: the one you practiced, the one you gave, and the one you wish you gave. That's by Dale Carnegie. There will always be 3 speeches for everyone you practice. Everyone you gave, the one you practice, and I encourage you to practice a lot. I've already told you about the practice tools: the video, the audio, the mirrors. Use those practice tools to practice. But again, there will be the one that you really gave on that podium, and there'll also be the ones that you wish you gave. All right. So what makes you a good speaker is when what you gave, is so in line, is so in alignment with what you actually hope you gave. What you wish you gave and what you gave are so in alignment. That's what makes you a good speaker. All right. What you practice and what you wish you gave and what you gave are in alignment. That's what makes you a good speaker. All right. Recommendation clause. I'll just reel out the clauses. You recommend at the end of the day what people should do. You recommend. We have rhetorical question clause. Will corruption end in Nigeria? That kind of close, a question that does not require them to give you an answer, but leaves them thinking. Phrase the question and, put it out there. A rhetorical question close. A suggestive close could be like, okay, I'm about to close. I'll soon be ending my thoughts. That's a transitional statement that tells the audience, and also suggestive close that tells the audience, this guy is about to wrap up. Quotation close, where you don't know what to do as my student, close with a quote. Now make sure that the quote you're closing with totally encapsulates all that you have been talking about. It literally summarizes or uses shorter words to express the central theme, of what you've been saying. So that's critical. That means that you don't just bring out a quote, your quote should not be the quote for your last point. Your quote should be a quote that covers all the points you've shared. That's where the thinking is. Go research, do your self-finding, and then come with a good close quote. Make sure the quote comes out strong. Be conscious of the quote. Use the power of pauses. Before you make that quote, you pause, you give the quote, and then you pause after you've given the quote. Sometimes you might have to repeat the quote as you leave the stage. Now, since it's a final quote, you don't have to explain the quote. If it's in the body, you can explain the quote or highlight, high point, the quote. But if you're closing, if you're ending your presentation with a quote, you don't have to explain the quote. The quote should be so thought-provoking that anybody can listen to it and just say, wow, what a statement. And gives you, and the person, and the people, the audience gives you a standing ovation. Or a challenge close is when you are demanding for the people to rise up to the occasion, when you call them to take action, when you tell them to do something, to become something. The challenge close presupposes that you are ahead of them, that you have achieved what you are challenging them to achieve, that you are up there and you are calling them to rise up to the occasion, to climb. So that's what the challenge close is about. It's challenging them to do what you've done. So use words like you can. I believe you can. Use the word you when you are using the challenge clause in your recency, when you're concluding your thoughts. There's also another kind of clause. The invitation clause is slightly different. The invitation clause is different because it presupposes that you and the audience are at the same level. You are at the same cadre. You are at the same level. You're not where you're telling them, let's do this together. So what you're going to use very often is let us, we can, let us, because it presupposes that you are not there. We're all, maybe you're trying to advocate for peace. You're trying to get them to reach out to something, an ideal mindset and so on. So you're trying to get them together. That's called the invitation clause. Whereas the challenge clause is you telling them to rise up to the occasion, to meet you at where you are. Okay, so that's the difference. When you have the title clause, is when you end your presentation with your title. It's called the title clause. So it depends on the phrasing of your title. If your title is such a drama, that's why selecting your topics and choosing your topics is also very important. You can choose to close, your last words can be that very well thought through title that you gave us at the beginning. All right. And then the secular close is very easy, is when you tell a story and then you leave it off, keep us in suspense. And as you begin to conclude your thoughts, you now refer back to that story and then end with it. It's called the secular close, or the top and tail method of closing, where the top, your ideas, your story was shared at the beginning, and then as you paused, continue to highlight your points, and then as you are concluding your thoughts, you just use that story and then you end with it. It's called the secular close. The summary close is another very interesting way to leave, to be, if a teacher either use a quotation close or use the summary close. Summary close is another very interesting way, easy way, where you summarize the point. Now, in summarizing, you don't want to repeat those points. You only want to rephrase them and make them in one word, one or two words, one or two phrases. That's bam, 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 bam. And then you summarize all that you said, and then you exit the stage. All right. So that's pretty much where we're going to stop. We're going to still teach this again, the closing techniques. We have other kinds of close, benediction close, and so on, and the repetitive close. I will show you how we can practically use them. But I hope you got value today. Let me know if you got value today. You can now speak to us. Let me now take questions from you. If you got value, let me see that you got value. Okay, someone saw a pink, see also pink shoe and white lace. Fantastic. Somebody else saw ash and sea green. Interesting. Also pink shoe and green lace. Also pink shoe, sea green, and ash shoe. Wow, amazing. Well done. So let me get to hear from you guys. We have a sizable number of people who attended class today. Let me get to hear what you think about the class we just did today. Starting from yesterday, when we started talking about primacy, and then leading to today, where we look at recency. And today we talked about the importance of transition. Transitions was we emphasized some of the different types of transition and transitional statements. And then we also looked at recency. So transitional statement, prep formula, windshield wiper method. What made a strong impression on you? What lessons are you going home with? And we can move on. So let me take some questions from you guys quickly before we close. Yeah, thank you. So much content. Thank you, love. So go ahead. Let me hear from you. I like you to come. It's a public speaking class. It's not a public chatting, a public. Let's hear from you. What are your what big lessons did you carry? I will start calling you by your names now. All right, Pastor Love, go ahead.
Yeah, it was so, I joined late, but I was so really blessed. I think I like the quotes, the quotation close, and then you talk about the rhetorical close, living, and all that. It's very, it was very insightful, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. Yeah. All right, let's have somebody else talk to us. We'll take three more conversations. I'd like you to speak. If you want to say something. How about Gloria? Okay, Christabel,
Hello?
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Yeah.
This was quite very interesting, and I got so much value. This transitional aspect of it that we did, I've actually been looking forward to this.
Okay, it's being taught.
Sorry?
I'll be looking forward to it being taught, because sometimes I score you guys, your transitions are actually quite poor, but I just give you guys 6. I tell my students that when I give you 6, it means that you got 1 actually. I'm just trying to be friendly enough to give you 6 in transitions.
Yes, actually, I never knew that there's even a maybe a course like this or something. So I've actually been struggling to learn this transitional aspect of a presentation, because when you have this transition, when you're able to transit with all these phrases and words, it makes somebody's presentation more beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful. Yes, I've actually been trying to get it. I go online to try to check to see the words, the phrase I can use to put that it to transit from one idea to the other. In fact, this night, I enjoyed this.
Well
then
done,
I have a question.
Go ahead, ma'am.
When we're talking about close, so we can also use a kind of a combo close, that is 2 close at the same time.
Yes. You can use a combo. You can use more than 1 close. Yes, you can use suggestive and quotation. You can combine closes. Yes, you can combine closes. Yes. Okay. You see, when it comes to preparing presentation, it's difficult. It's not as easy as we make it look. It's actually very challenging. It's you actually taking time to work very hard to come up with something very strong. And the time you put into making sure, and analyzing your audience, coming down to write the script, the opening, the body, the transitional phrases you're going to use, all of that, the quote you're going to use, it takes time. That's why you must be a deep thinker, you must be vast, and it doesn't matter what speech you're doing, even if you're giving a speech at in your office, and then you take your time to do it, people will know that this woman or this man has put in time to this presentation.
Yeah.
And you don't know where it will take you to. When you're thorough, you attract excellence. When you're thorough, excellence is the next thing that happens to you. People just know that lady puts in time to a presentation. She's very intentional and very deliberate. And no, she deserves, because the microphone will take you to leadership. You get promotions because you can speak well. So every time you speak, make sure you're always doing it well. You have a sermon to give, do it very well. Somebody is listening to you that can take you to your next level.
Can I ask a question?
I'm not done. I still have one question, please.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm still talking about close. Say for instance, you are using a quotation close. Like what you said, you should just end it with that close without explaining again. But I think that you don't have to explain. But I think I can still use a quotation close. Then I will not add a challenge close.
Fantastic.
So somehow the challenge close will also be related to the quotation close.
Fantastic. Great.
But I will do that.
You can do that. Yes. Very often people belabor, they will now give a quote. The quote is very easy enough for us to understand. We know what it means. Then you now try to explain the quote again. Oh, madam, just leave the stage. We got the message. But if you're going to use the quotation clause, then use a challenge at the end that's related to the quote. Fantastic.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yes, well done.
How do Dr. Essien, yes, how do we manage our time in presentations? And I'm speaking with a bias because, as pastors, we want to win souls. And there's this tendency, especially at the end, we repeat a lot, we just keep on, we say one thing like 10 times, How do we discipline ourselves and try not to, say too much?
You see, but most times, when I was in a certain meeting one of those days, and I listened to the pastor. The pastor kept talking about something and rephrasing, looking for scriptures, and it was the same point. And when I don't say to myself, all this guy said, I can say it in 5 minutes. I kept us there for over an hour. I can say this thing I said in 5 minutes. Why are you dragging this matter?
We want to win souls now. Sometimes you need to repeat, just saying the same thing. Give your life to Christ.
But so for me, I think that I prefer a pastor who has so much. If you're going to do 1 hour, if I'm going to listen to you for an hour, give me 1 hour worth of quality content. Let me go back home and think that in fact, I may not give my life to Christ, like you said on that meeting, but when I go, I'm like, man, that man taught.
You can reflect on it,
I can reflect on it and say, no, I need to consider this man's faith or whatever. So that's what I think. It's not about the passion and the dragging of the word. It's about timing. How do you control time? I think that for us who are speakers, who are professional speakers, when I go for meetings, I ask my host, how much are you giving to me?
Okay.
I am prepared for every eventuality. I prepared my message in such a way that I can give 5 minutes. I can do it in 5 minutes. I can do it in 20 minutes. I can do it in 1 hour and on and on. So we use a recorder to practice. So I record, and most of the assignments I give students who are my public speaking student is work with 5 minutes. You think 5 minutes is a short time? Do quality presentation for 5 minutes. Let me see how you do quality presentation for 5 minutes. Most of you, when you do presentation in 5 minutes, it don't make so much sense. You don't choke it. Choke your presentation in 5 minutes, then expand and expand. So you can use a recorder to, do a time check on yourself. Be sure that, okay, this 5 minutes I've done, what quality have I? You listen to yourself again. How many points did I mention? What was the quality? Did I overchoke it? Were there stories? Were there quotes? How did I transition? How did I open? Did I fill my 5 minutes with gap fillers? And on and on and on. You know, so you choosing a recorder, it helps you to time yourself and improve the quality of your presentation. All right.
I will do so. Thank you very much. I will try that. I'll try that. Thank you.
Hold on. God bless you, sir. So any other person wants to say something? Any other person wants to share? I see a Deacon. I see a Deacon. I see Simeon. I see Ife. Any other person? All right. So I want to really thank you guys for being part of this class. We might have a class tomorrow. I'm just going to send you a link. Well, there's a particular topic I want us to treat. A topic that I feel that we call it the eloquence, the art and science of eloquence, the art and science of eloquence, either tomorrow or we can maybe sometime this week. But make sure when you come to class, you're writing down. Like I said, we're announcing we are putting a school, our audio materials and our videos on the website. We're creating a website that contains everything where you can download all of these videos, every time you have classes, download, do your assignment, upload your assignment, have a coach, you get notified for Zoom links, see what others are doing. And so I'll put it on the website. It's going to cost us ₦1 million to put the website together. And we're saying that our alumnus, students who appreciate the value that we give, can give 30% of the ₦1 million. And all we're saying is if we have 100 and something students we have in class who can give us just 3K, it's not compulsory. You don't have to give, but if you can support, donate 3K, and we have 300,000, and we can kickstart the process and build something that we're doing. So beyond the fact that we make some money from public speaking, the truth is that it's about helping people to become leaders. Our country we don't have leaders who are good speakers. And so there's a lacuna in leadership because the people who are in position of power are not making their speeches meaningful. So in Podium Dynamics Academy, we try to make our speeches meaningful, make people's speeches meaningful. And so we want to call you to be part of this crusade. We have done a lot, through WhatsApp, through Zoom, through Facebook, and we can do much more. And we would like you to be part of it. You can join the class. Don't just come here once in a while and be very deliberate. Take the 18 classes, do the assignments, get the certification, and you do well. I can assure you that you will not get the quality of information that we're giving you on public speaking anywhere else. Now, if you have ever gone for any public speaking training or class, go and come back and challenge us. No one will teach you public speaking in a systematic, detailed, we cover every subject matter, detailed manner. We even talk about different kinds of speeches. You're giving eulogies, valedictory speeches. No place. Go and find. If you find and you come back and tell us, because we cover everything. And very soon we'll start teaching you specialized speaking. Maybe you are interested in emceeing, what to do as an MC, what to do as a facilitator. All those things we treated in the coming days. And I really appreciate you guys for joining us. Thank you so much and have a blessed week ahead. God bless.
Thank you. God bless you.